Okay. This is Thursday, December 16th, 2021. It is 4 p.m. It's a regular monthly meeting of the Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority. Meeting is called to order. Mr. Lawrence, any letters of communications to the board?
No, just in the board read file, there's some articles about our interviewing of applications for the economic developer and some articles about the border opening.
Anyone have any questions, any comments regarding letters of communications? No?
No.
Okay, let's move on to approval of board minutes. Mr. King, November 10th, 2021.
Minutes were I've gone over them and they're found to be in order, so I will move for their approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor of approving the board minutes on November 10th, 2021, say aye. Aye. Opposed? So carried. Reports, committee reports. Personnel Committee, Ms. Bickman?
Yes, of course. So the Personnel Committee has met twice since our last board meeting. The first time on November 18th. We met at 4:30. The business we conducted there was we reviewed all of the applications and letters, resumes of candidates applying for the Director of Economic Development position. And at that meeting, we narrowed it down to 5 candidates. We met again yesterday, December 15th, at 5 p.m. We conducted interviews for those 5 said candidates. And we were able to narrow it down to a successful candidate that name will be brought forward to the full board. Also, pending checks of references and background check.
What time at night did that committee chair adjourn the meeting? Just for the record.
I believe we adjourned, was it 10:17 p.m. We adjourned. Yes, it was a long but worthwhile evening. Thank you. Yeah.
If we're a little punchy today.
Yeah. So, and that's all I have.
Thank you. I must comment that Madam Chair of that committee did an outstanding job introducing all of the candidates and going into the first round of questions. So thank you for that. And
Thank you.
Member Kennedy followed through with some excellent questions. I think we had ample opportunity to listen to each candidate, their backgrounds, their experience, and what they had to offer for the OBPA. So thank you, Madam Chair. I think it went very well.
Yes, it was. We had some great candidates. It was great. Nice process. Yes, thank you.
Good. Facilities Committee report.
Facilities Committee met on the 18th of November as well, and we discussed several things. One was there was a proposal for a proposed dog park. We listened a little bit about that, discussed it, and then I believe maybe next meeting.
Yeah, they called today and they will be giving a presentation at the January board meeting during at the beginning of the board meeting.
So the committee had some questions and wanted them presented to the full board. So that's on the docket. We had a quick little deal with the fiber extension for the buildings in the park. And then we discussed at length the changes in the SkyWest or United time slots and flights, and decided we'd draft a letter, which has been done, and Chairman Burns has sent that down to the folks who have that. So I believe maybe we've had a response already too. So
Yes,
we have, and we have followed up with our air service development people, making them aware of the letter that you wrote and their response. And they're working with Stephanie to follow up with, and we can speak to some of that, but to follow up with some questions as they relate to contract and as they relate to performance. And we went into some other things there, but we are following up on that to, we've got a couple of different directions we may want to go, and we'll need advice on that.
Good, good. I don't know if I've ever been accused of being a patient person. I think what little bit I did have are gone. Just to say. Thank you, Mr. King. Anything else?
That's my report. That's amazing. Any questions?
Anyone? Any questions? No? We will put the Finance Committee and Income Expense Report off until we deal with the budget at the request of the Finance Committee Chair. That seems quite appropriate. In light of that, let's move on to the bridge traffic report.
Mr. Chairman, I picked out probably 3 things to kind of just point to with this report. It's a reflection of only 3 weeks of the first week was still restricted. So, and then there was quite a surge the first week. So keep that in mind that it's I don't know how representative it's going to be going out through, but it is an improvement. As you can see, we were running in the 84 when you look at auto crossings compared to 2019. We're running anywhere from 84 to 86, and now we're down to 71. And then if you look at all other crossings, they're almost even with the non-COVID year of 2019, which that's strong. That's something to to be positive. And then you'll see that overall revenue was up over 2020 by about $19,000, which that's a positive there. And we'll know more. We'll probably get a pretty good reading on December because I think it'll be more uniform as far as U.S. and Canadian traffic. But as you know, there is some discussion that that may ramp back there. It just seems we can't shake things up enough to get back to a regular traffic flow. Any questions on that?
No. On to airport activity and occupancy report.
Yes, sir.
Oh, there she is. Okay.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
Okay, the activity report, as you can see, we're holding pretty steady through the fall. I anticipate December to follow along with the last 3 months, and that should put us over our 10,000 enplanements for the year, even though we got a pass on that for this year from the FAA on needing those enplanements for our AIP funding. But I think we should make that. Things are looking up right now so far this year. As far as occupancy report, we had 1 hangar that is now unoccupied, but I am working with a couple of people who are on a waiting list, and I hope that in January there will be a lease agreement to occupy that hangar, and then we will be filled again.
Good. Anything else?
Any questions?
Stephanie, this is Patty.
Yes.
In November, it says there are 46 flights, and October had 58.
That is correct.
Where did those 12 flights go?
Well, in October, they were switching their flights around, and they actually flew 14 flights a week instead of the required 12. That's why we had 58 flights. Now, in November, there were a couple of delayed and canceled flights due to weather. And because of the holiday, They only flew the one flight on Thanksgiving and the day after.
You have another question?
And maybe what, how many canceled flights have you had in the month of December so far?
None so far this year, or this month.
Interesting. Okay.
You haven't,
Well-
right?
Well, I'm glad to hear that any cancellations that occurred during November were due to the weather and not due to any of our conditions on the runway. Is that correct?
That is correct. Unfortunately, with the ceiling height here in this area, that was cause for the canceled flight, one of the canceled flights, and the others were due to weather issues in DC.
Right. All right. Okay. So I was clear that our employees are doing an excellent job out there clearing the runway.
Yes, they are.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
Board activity report. Patty, you doing that one or Steve?
Report, Steve goes.
We really picked up with salt, even though the weather's warm. We're up close to 15,000 tons just in the half a month of December. And as you can see on the salt summary sheet, that's quite a bit more than the last 3 months. So obviously they've used quite a bit during those use there, and so we're refilling barns. What happens is you get that lag when the weather's good, everybody fills up, and then it takes a few storms to bring that down. But overall, salt has really been moving, and with Compass has the environmentally friendly thaw rocks, which we've had for 2 years now. That seems to be moving quite a bit too. And because sheds don't have room for both, it's always an indicator of what people think is going to happen with the weather. So lately we've been shipping a lot of thaw rocks, mostly to the Adirondacks, but they don't have the capacity to store both. So they try to just when things are, I think in the next week or so that they're anticipating, colder weather or whatever, but it's been good. Grain has been very good. We've picked up some local farm that want to store an abundance of their corn crop. So we're doing our best to help them out. One will store in flat storage, and the other one, hopefully, we'll get together with that entity and see that, let them see our grain bins, and hopefully they're familiar with storing in grain bins, and I just want them to be aware of there's some things that aren't perfect out there as far as keeping it out of the weather, and it's not a really great time there. But if they agree that there's something we can go with, then we hope to have that happen middle of next week. So we're glad that we can help out, and maybe it'll become an annual thing where at least we're available to help out. We are full, and we're next thing is going to be much smaller places that we're placing it, but we've got space. And then to be able to use or give a trial on the grain bin that'll be interesting, but it'll be we might as well see what we're at or where we're at. So that's been very good. And then talking about future projects, myself and Adam Johnson were out in Salt Lake City all last week, very productive. I can safely say that we're going to have at least 2 projects, and hopefully at least one more. And we're in the running for a number of them. But the one thing, and I've explained this to everybody, or at one time or another, we can't, even though we could, we can't take all of the projects because of logistics. There's only so many trucks, there's only so many state troopers that can do escorts. And so in this, a lot of it has to be spread out, and to make those schedules happen, customers, the large wind people can't, they've got to take into mind that they've got to meet schedules to meet. So then they end up having to, even though they may prefer one over the other, they have to spread things out. So we do our best to reassure them of what we can do and be honest about it. And having our partner there in some of the negotiations was immensely helpful. I would be lost without him. So I really need to do a shout out to OMLC and then the people that they brought to. That's very reassuring to a lot of the big name wind people that they know that firm. So looks like we're going to be busy. So that's good for us and for Patty.
Steve, I have just a question. Are there wind projects currently happening like locally, northern New York State?
Locally,
yeah.
Mostly it's either in northeastern New York or down Lowville way.
So Lowville still, okay. I didn't know if those projects had been completed, if they were still ongoing or expanding.
Yeah, and some were kind of because of COVID and everything. And then also, from what I gathered talking to people at the conference was the federal government has gone long-term with credits. And I think they're out 10 years. That allows people to do a lot of planning. And I would say I'm more positive about wind than I was 2 years ago, because I think in 2023 or 4, a lot of those credits were going to expire. So everybody was trying to get, and once you got something started, you were covered under that. So now, from what I understand, that's going to help in their planning. One thing that does enter, and especially around the region, is transmission. A lot of times that's why they're clustered, is because there's an infrastructure to move that power to the grid. Okay. So even though, you may see an area that you always think is windy, transmission of that power is always an issue. And you've seen how New York State has stepped up with the I call it the 765 line, but it's got another name now. And I think there's areas where basically future power projects can plug in. I think that's what I heard. I don't know if it's concrete, but maybe they've designed things so that they could take a region's either solar or wind and plug into that.
Okay, good. Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Is that it?
Yep.
The treated salt down at the port, wasn't that a pilot project? This is what, this will be the 3rd year for it?
We tried it the first year, and we just couldn't make it come together. We thought we were going to do, so this is the 3rd year of discussion, but last year was really our first year of really taking it in. And right now we've made more than we did last year that's stored there. They'll probably come in and do another batch, but I think that there's a demand for somewhere between 18 and 20,000 tons. And we made 14,000 back in October, and it's all stored in one building. So it's all undercover.
So is this going basically within the blue line?
Yeah. And it's kind of, I think more and more entities are trying to reduce their salt usage. You don't have to use as much. It's more effective in colder weather. And
it may be the time when we approach New York State DOT and explain to them that we now have this under control. It doesn't need to be a pilot project, that they should expand it to basically all of northern New York, and we'll be more than happy to supply them with it. We should send that notice out to New York State DOT. If that means we have to maybe construct something a little bit different than what we have, we'll certainly appreciate the help from DOT to do that.
And a number of salt companies have, I mean, we have the one that we were working with, but others have approached us. And I think that may be part of the future. So just from what I gather from the interest that we get, it's a value added thing to where we just take regular road salt. They supply a pug mill and machine and the chemical that gets mixed in it. And then we just bring that white salt, we take it off, and it's blue that we take off, and then we store it in the building. So aside from just we're improving the product for them, and then we're part of that, and we get paid to do that. So
What do you think, Mr. King? Is that something we can do?
Yeah, you want a letter, I assume, or
Yes.
if we need any beyond that, well, usually we can do that. We'll work with Steve and.
Okay.
His letter.
So let's jump on it before the legislative session begins. Okay, thank you. Building occupancy report. Patty, you're doing the next two?
Yes, sir. This building is full. We have one tenant whose lease is up in December. Otherwise, we have one request for approval of supplement number 5 with another tenant, but this building is full. We have a current tenant who is looking for the St. Lawrence Health Alliance storage space. It's, how many square feet did we figure that out?
a little over 1,000.
It had nothing in it. They had shelving and all they had was medical files. This tenant would like to buy up because of the supply chain problems, would like to get ahead and have some of his envelopes and different supplies at hand and not have to worry about the supply chain. So he is going to probably start renting January 1st.
Good.
We have, I believe you'll see 5 renewals on the January board meeting, and then we'll be all caught up with all of our tenants, and then we'll start all over again.
How much space do we have available in the industrial park?
1,300 square feet,
None.
none. Well, it's the old FedEx office space is the only space we have left.
Right. Okay. Anything else? No? No. Unfinished business. Mr. Lawrence, do we have any?
None, Mr.
right.
Chairman.
Let's go into business items. A1, approval of the 2022-2023 fiscal year budget. Okay, Mr. Coffin?
Well, I will ask Patty and Steve to present the detailed information about the budget. I have a couple of general comments that I'd like to pass on to you. The summary meets the task, the commission that we have to plan our expenses to meet our revenue and to have a break-even operation. The revenue projection shows bridge traffic increasing in the new budget year. so that it'll be about, I think, 60% of the pre-pandemic level. Does that sound accurate?
Yes.
Yes.
And the port project shows revenue at, based on the assumption that we'll have 2 windmill projects. And then the other port revenue, which I assume really reflects a lot of the salt handling and so forth, looks to me as if it's about 80% of the past year's revenue.
Right.
So it's that particular aspect is not over optimistic, but we did have an unusually strong year this year. At the same time, the airport revenue is projected to grow. And I'm not sure that I know what the basis is for that projection. So I would, in a sense, ask you that question when you address the budget. On the expense side, the airport expenses in the new budget are lower than this year's actual. And I think that is the intention that you've expressed, but that does represent a challenge, I think, to Stephanie and to Steve in particular to make that happen. And it will be our pleasure, if we would, to keep our eyes on that as the year goes along and see whether or not that's doable. As far as the process goes for presentation of the budget this year, I think that I was reminded of the old axiom of attorneys that if you can't win based on the facts, I don't know if this is real. So, correct.
I can't wait to hear this.
If you can't win on the facts, bury them with paper. And I think that a lot of what I had asked for, comparables to prior years and things of that nature, is in this thick document that represents the budget presentation. And I appreciate a great deal the degree to which you've shown us how you did make these estimates of revenue and expenses. It is very difficult for boards, especially with a complicated organization like this, to understand the budgeting process, and yet the budgeting process is the point at which the board, more than any of the individual resolutions we make, has an opportunity to weigh in on the progress of the organization. And it certainly is true that the revenue numbers and the expense numbers are estimates based on best faith information, but I appreciate having that information exposed so that we can see it. And with that, I wonder if you'd illuminate anything that comes along. Oh, I did have one question. There are big changes in insurance expense budgets. Would you address that?
I believe last year there were a couple that were not included, or they were not spread over all of the different cost centers that we have. In the past, it was supposed to work that a lot of the things such as employee benefits, insurance, would get charged only to the bridge. And then at the end of the year during the audit, they would distribute them to the correct cost center. More often than not, I have seen that it was never distributed. So what we tried to do this year, and what we're trying to do even with the expenses as we go through the current year, is give the airport its share of employee benefits, FICA, taxes, all of those types of things. And if the airport does have its own insurance, but it also has a portion of the vehicle insurance and the workers' compensation insurance and things of that nature. So we're trying to make sure that everybody gets a slice of the pie and not just leave it with the bridge.
Yep.
Does anyone have any questions on how we created the budget? I know there are a lot of pieces of paper, and one of the things we do have on the airport, which has increased the revenue, is we did look at how the fuel sales are going this year, which we had very conservatively reduced last year. We're not taking it to what you would anticipate for 12 months based on 7. But we are increasing our assumption for the 22-23 fiscal year. We just don't know how long the airport can sustain this additional GA traffic that it's had. So we didn't want to say, oh yes, it's going to be double what it was last year, and then find out that for some reason the GA traffic has fallen off. And we do have all of the hangar rentals filled for the next budget year also, where last year I think we had 3 or 4 that were not filled. So we're going on the assumption that all of them will be filled for next year. We took away all of the parking fees and the rental car income. So we've started bringing some of that back to pre-COVID numbers. Again, we've been very conservative with it, but we have made an effort to bring some of those items back into the budget. And that's why the income for the airport especially has increased. The port revenue, we have indeed taken back some of the income that we've gotten this year. The salt this year was a boom. We don't anticipate that it will stay at that level going forward. So we brought that back a little way so as to not overstate the budget for this year. And as you mentioned, we only have 2 wind turbine projects in the budget. From Steve's attendance last week, there is a possibility, but again, we didn't want to say, oh yes, we're going to have another windmill project and then not have one. So we're fairly certain of the 2 that we have. Our biggest challenge on the expense side is keeping some of these, such as the airport, within a budget. It will be a bit of a challenge, but I think working with Stephanie, we can get some of these costs under control and maybe even have a better idea of when they occur. And maybe be able to look at when can we do this, can we move this out to here? If we end up at the end of this year with extra de-icing, well, maybe we wouldn't need to buy quite as much for next year. So those are things that we're going to have to work on month by month.
Well, as far as my report goes, I'm satisfied that you've covered the things that I wanted to know. I wonder whether anyone else has questions about the budget before we go further with it.
I don't have a question. I just have a comment that it is so detailed. I could just tell there's so much work that went into this, and I appreciate the level of detail. Thank you. I mean, it's everything's here. It's great.
I second that, and I think that you took a lot of information and made it very digestible, which is incredibly helpful for us. This is so really nicely done.
And I would just say, being on the finance committee, it's been way more understandable.
Right?
Okay, and I can echo Chris's comments. There's a lot more confidence in what we're looking at here today.
Yeah.
I think that's good. So, thank you.
Thank you.
To both of you.
Yeah.
Mainly Patty. One thing too, in the previous years, and those of you who've been around me for a while, capital expenditure has really been 0. So we did, how much was capital expenditure, $1 million something? Maybe we've,
No, it wasn't all, the total number was 1 million, but we have approximately not quite all of that is capital itself.
I mean, you have a number for capital that we're,
Capital is
that's
just
our-
over $1 million.
that's in there, that's mostly our money.
That's either our portion of a project or a capital expense that we're going to undertake without assistance.
So there is like a new vehicle in there. And what I'm getting at is with all the unknowns and the variables in this budget, that depending on how we're going, once again, we'd like to go through and just spend that and be moving forward with capital. But it does allow us a little room to maintain our budget. You know, there might be things that, okay, we can't do it at the end of 2022. We can hold off till May of 23 in another budget year so that we can keep our budget. It's more or less a buffer. I would love to just go through and everything come out right as far as capital goes, but and that's not always the way to look at it, but it's just kind of to reassure you that we've got some, I don't know the word you used.
Well, there's 382,000 out of that million that if we spent it all, that is our capital on things such as the new snowplow truck, et cetera. That if we had to pull back a couple of months before we ordered that one, we could do it. And that would, I hate to use the word buffer, but it gives us a little bit of room if something happens.
Well, in addition to the buffer, the fact that we do have some options,
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's my understanding that this year, as opposed to last year, or perhaps even a couple of years, that this is the first time that we've put money in the budget to really address some of the capital. Equipment gets exhausted, and in the long run, you need to average replacement cost every year. You've got to put a certain share in.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't do it last year.
And what Chris is saying right now is what we discussed that in the finance committee extensively.
Yeah.
And he's touching on kind of where we should be headed.
You know, in the long run, if you're talking ideal situations where you had adequate revenue, we would take the life of a truck, and every year if you said it's going to last for 15 years, you'd take a 15th of the cost of a new truck and sort of put it aside in a fund, and then draw out of that fund as you needed to buy trucks, mowers,
Right.
paint buildings, and so forth. So this is a really constructive thing that we've been able to put $1 million in our budget toward maintenance and replacement of things.
And if you look in there under, there is a half-year position or funding for a half-year position under Director of Operations. I can't, with everything coming up, I can't, I just can't keep going like this. It's gonna bite us sooner or later, especially we're responsible for labor down at the port. I can't be everywhere at once, and I can't put that onto Adam and OMLC. That's not their responsibility. So there'll be times when he'll say, you have to get down here, and I've got other commitments. So part of that, though, when we work out these projects, mine and Adam's salary works into that. In other words, we build that into that we pull revenue out for him to pay a couple months of his, and then me not so much because I'm not as involved as he is, but I'm able to take the curse off of my salary by we actually build that in. So I may be coming to you sooner in springtime when we have these projects and want to come on board, because I believe the other half of that Director of Operations is going to be funded through those windmill projects. So it would be a perfect time to get somebody invested in understanding what goes on down there, to work with Adam, to work with Stephanie, and in effect, that project's paying for that half of that. And so in the wind turbine revenue, basically that's going to be paying for that. So that's kind of how we set that up, rather than just say full shot from April 1st, we'll have somebody here as director of operations. So that's kind of my plan. So I will be coming to you on that one, and we will need to go out. And then I will love it, because I can, I started here and took on all kinds of things, and really I didn't have somebody, you pick up a lot on your own and you trial by fire type of thing, but I will like it that I can set somebody straight about how we do everything, and that organizational knowledge won't get lost. So I certainly appreciate it. And for Patty's sake, when you talk about organizational knowledge, it's invaluable, and we have it in a few people here, and then out in my group, they've been around a long time, and they're young enough where I don't worry about that, but that's so important, for succession planning and things like that. So I'm trying to think of that. I'm not trying to tell you I'm going anywhere, but it's something that we have to think about. So
That's right.
Absolutely.
You can't keep things so tight that the knowledge is focused just on one person.
Right.
Right.
Well, and it's high time we get somebody to share the load. I mean, you two have, for the last year and a half, we've put a lot on you, and you guys have done a great job, a phenomenal job, especially under the circumstances, but it's not fair.
Yeah.
And it's not the way it should be under.
Well, our relationship with the board has really been, I mean, I think we can talk on a real informal level that helps communication and different things. So we appreciate that. It's made it easier. So anyway, that's kind of all I had on that.
Are you ready for a motion?
Well, I just wanted to be clear that our bottom line for this year's budget we're going into is in the black versus last year's. That was unlike anything I've seen here at the authority, mostly because of COVID and its effect it had on the authority. And yet, I think we're fortunate enough that we weren't the only ones facing that, and the state realized that, and they worked with us. And I think now they should recognize that we actually, hopefully, at the end of this budget year, will be in a much better position than we had anticipated when we submitted the budget to Albany. And this budget shows them that we are investing in the authority with the money for the capital equipment and everything. And yet still, we're careful on what our expenses are. We're not overestimating our revenues. And we're doing the mission that we were set up to do. So thanks to everyone, certainly Patty and Steve, and thanks to the Finance Committee, Chris, Dave, thank you. You guys have done a lot of work in the committee. We've gone over a lot, and I think the ease of how all this is transpiring over the budget shows how much work all of you have put into it. So, thank you. Now I'm ready for a motion.
Well, I would move that we adopt the budget as presented for the 2022-2023 fiscal year.
Thank you. Motion's been made.
I'll second.
Motion's been seconded. Any discussion? No, Anne Marie, call the roll, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Cochran?
Yes.
Ms. Brooks Hickman?
Yes.
Mr. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Whitten?
Yes.
Ms. Terminelli?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Nicole, I didn't even know you were there. You should have filmed something at me.
It's okay.
Glad to have you there.
Glad to join you.
Agenda item A2, approval of a retainer agreement extension with Strategic Development Specialists LLC, which is an MWBE, and we need to congratulate them. Leanne wrote the DRI for Messina that was just granted the $10 million for that project. So I think we certainly have the right company.
Yes, and she's done well for us. And for the past year, she wrote an airport security grant for us out at the airport, and it was a New York State grant that was written in August of 2020, and we got word that you're all aware that we got $1 million for that. 10% of it is ours, but Leanne and Strategic were part of that, and then they helped us with our Chrissy grant. I mean, they've really straightened that all out so that we're moving forward. We still need to bid out 3 other pieces of equipment, but we've got until the end of this coming year to take care of that. And I can say there's 5 other grants that we've written. 3 we don't know the answer to, and 2 we do. We weren't successful, but we're going to resubmit those. We've learned more about what we need to do. A lot of it has to do with financial and monies that we can put up to show more of our, more of what we need to do to put into the projects. But they've been extremely helpful with our grant writing.
Everyone's read the report and the resolution. Is there a motion?
I'll move it.
And Nate, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Just to make note that there's no increase in cost over last year.
That's unusual. With everything else going on, yeah. We better hurry up and do this. Motion's been made and seconded. No further discussion. Anne Marie, call the roll, please.
Mr. Coffin?
Yes.
Ms. Brooklinger?
Yes.
Mr. Byrne?
Yes.
Ms. Whitten?
Yes.
Mr. Minelli?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Motion carried.
You. Agenda item A3, approval of the sale of surplus property. Mr. Lawrence?
Yes, there's a 1.86 acre parcel that is on the corner of County Route 28 and 37. It's to the east of here. When you go down there, a lot of people take that the back way to Canton, Potsdam, Lisbon, and all that. But when we did a deed plot, the point of the deed plot was to know exactly what we had for property. And when we were looking at all that, I drove by it for years and just thought it would belong to the state or something like that. But actually that chunk of land kind of goes back toward ACO and into that field that we rent for the farmer or whatever. So we didn't own right to the corner, but kind of there's a gas meter right there. Well, everything to the south of that is that piece of property. There's a picture here on the appraisal, kind of looking at it. It's quite overgrown, but there's quite a few nice trees, and then it borders on the, I don't know what's the name of that. Tibbetts Creek goes in the back of that. There has been some interest by people that live near there in that, but we can't deal with them directly. There's a process we go through. So if you see in the report, the interest in this parcel for development has been very limited or non-existent. So as a consequence, the parcel sat vacant and undeveloped. Returning this parcel to private ownership through the process of public auction that complies with public authority law may stimulate private investment or development. At a minimum, it would return the parcel to tax rolls and have a positive impact on local taxing jurisdiction. There would also be a nominal benefit to the authority in terms of reducing maintenance costs and an impact financially in terms of a one-time generation. A property survey and appraisal has been conducted, and that's part of what we have to do. So we have to get an appraisal, and you see that, and you see what that was appraised at, and then we did a property survey. So the authority's contracting officer, myself, has supervision and direction over the disposition of the authority property, recommends deeming this parcel surplus and commencing with a public auction with a minimum purchase price of $20,000.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
How did we come up with the $20,000?
We took our land expert here and took, no, seriously, rather than just say 16,000 from the appraisal, and we
Quite a conversation about that.
We did.
Committee, right?
Yes, we
Yes,
did.
we did. So really, that's what came out of committee. We have, you know, if you get nobody or any for that, you have the option of, you know, lowering it.
You're welcome to raise it, Megan.
That's not where it's headed with it, Dave. I guess, is it zone commercial, do you know? Or do you know what the zone is?
It's in the town of Lisbon.
It's in the town of Lisbon. I'm not sure if it's, I to be honest with you, I should have looked to see that in the appraisal, but.
Okay, I mean, somebody can.
There have been little businesses on the curve. There is a currently existing business right on the curve.
Oh, okay.
And that state TOT property is part of when the arterial came through. If you'll notice, I think the old road was there. So you always see state trucks turn around there, people park there.
Right.
And I think, you know, it's just public land. So you're right, we were kind of thinking if that was ours, it would be very good for,
Right.
for commercial.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, we don't own that turnaround spot.
Right.
And then part of that, we'll have to advertise it legally, and then I think we're going for a March 1st.
Yeah,
Right.
March
Right.
1.
And then we've had some vinyl signs printed up, so we'll put those ads up there and have the guys build a board and just advertise that over 2 months and see what kind of interest. So we won't know anything till it goes to public auction, but we're following the process.
Right.
Does
So-
it go to the other, I'm sorry.
No,
excuse
go
me.
ahead.
Does it go to the other side of the creek?
No, it's right in the middle of the creek.
Okay.
There, the property kind of, the profile of it kind of is up, and then it's kind of slopes
Right.
down, and then actually it's kind of flat down near the brook.
Okay. Because
There.
I've noticed the tree line. I've gone by it and I've really been looking, but then you see the water of the creek, but I didn't know if it extended past. So, okay, thanks.
Okay. No? So this is the second piece of surplus land that the authority is selling and putting on the tax roll. Ms. Terminelli, what do you think of that?
Well, it's always great to get property back onto the tax rolls, that's for sure. It spreads the bill out among the people that contribute. So I think that's fantastic that we're able to do that.
I do too. As Mr. Lawrence has said earlier, we didn't even realize it was ours. And obviously, we didn't have any plans for it. I think now it's becoming more of a public knowledge that we do have a lot of land down here that we might be interested in putting back on the tax roll. And that's good for all the surrounding communities. So, resolution is before you. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion's been made. Is there a second? Made and seconded. Any discussion? Anne Marie, call the roll, please.
Ms. Clifford?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Liddy?
Yeah.
Mr. Terminelli?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Coffin?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Agenda item B1, leasehold improvement, UPS battery replacement, and that's not United Parcel Service.
No,
No.
uninterrupted power or something. Anyway, we are responsible as part of, when we built the building, there was a LAN room that is highly secure, but to operate the whole building and all of computers for CBP and FDA, we have it's quite a good size UPS system. And I believe this is the third time we're replacing the batteries. And we did upgrade the UPS there, I believe 5 or 6 years ago. But that's on us. But we are paid out of our lease with GSA to do that. So we put that in there. So out of the monies that we receive monthly, we put monies aside to take care of those things. So this is our responsibility, and we do have a service agreement that runs, you've seen it, I think it runs about $1,800 or $2,000 a year, where somebody comes up and inspects it every year. So their last inspection said, the batteries you're getting weak, you can try to ride them out, but there might be one weekend or one day when they fail and you've got a headache. So we're just trying to stay ahead of that. And that goes to kind of what we talked about with capital expenditures. So we're in the purchase is over $5,000, so I need to come to the board with this. There was no competitive bid because Vertiv is the sole source for their unit. So that's why there was no competitive bidding there.
You said it was the third time we've done this, and how long?
17 years.
Oh,
About every 5 years.
Yeah.
okay.
Not bad.
Yeah.
All right, the resolution is before you. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Been made, is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Nadia Marie, call the roll, please.
Mr. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Whitney?
Yes.
Ms. Terminology?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Coffin?
Yes.
Ms. Clifford?
Yes.
Motion carried.
You skipped that one. I missed anything on it for the-
No. No, it wasn't on purpose.
But I don't see anything.
No, what happened is I followed here and I didn't.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, we missed it somewhere.
Probably not.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Right, because it wouldn't come with a resolution, right? does it?
No, it's just
You
like,
just-
that.
Right.
You did fine.
Anne Marie, you should have thrown something at me.
Oh, I thought you did that on purpose.
No, no, agenda item A4. And I don't know why I skipped that. Appointment of a nominating committee. As we know, the term of all the officers of the board all run for one calendar year. So at our annual meeting in January, all of the officers either desire to stay on or can recommend someone else take their spot, or however we do it. So we would appoint a nominating committee. And I'm thinking they've done such a great job in the past that the committee should be chaired by Mr. Coffin, and whatever committee members he may need, if they would be charged with those duties. Mr. Coffin?
I would do that. I wonder whether Jennifer would serve with me. This is
Certainly.
basically a brief phone conference, I think, and
Yeah.
we'll go to it.
Sounds good. Okay.
Unless, of course, anyone else has the interest.
You
Feel
saw
free,
everybody just
jump in.
Step back.
You're not getting out of that, sorry. All right. Good, Anne Marie. Good move. All right, thank you, both of you. Now, let's go back to where I should have been. Agenda item B2, approval of supplemental lease agreement number 5 with Barbara Fleet.
The staff has negotiated
Thank you.
lease supplement number 5 with Barbara Fleet for 158 square feet in room 208 in the Bridge Administration Building for a 2-year period from November 1st, 21 through October 31st, 23 at a rate of $212 a month, including utilities. That is just upstairs here. All of the terms and conditions of the original lease agreement shall remain in full force and effect and are hereby ratified and affirmed.
You?
She's been with us for quite a while, hasn't she?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, because they're all about 2-year
Yeah,
agreements, so it's at least 10, 12
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
yeah, she's been here a long time.
Excellent. That's good.
And is this a rate increase for her?
No.
Okay.
All rate increases, Steve and I have talked about this through COVID. The next lease for every tenant will see an increase, but we wanted to keep our tenants able to pay through the COVID pandemic.
Good
Great,
idea.
thank you.
Okay, resolution is before you. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And seconded. Any further discussion? Let Anne Marie call the roll, please.
Ms. Whitney?
Yes.
Ms. Summerall?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Coffin?
Yes.
Ms. Clerk Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Burns?
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. Nothing in Commerce Park. And the airport. D1, approval of T-hanger lease. Stephanie?
Yes, the staff is prepared to transfer and storage agreement for hangar space at the Ogdensburg International Airport with Bird Tate Jr. Monthly rental for the hangar is $215. And the terms are from January 1st, 2022 through December 31st of 2022. Included in the agreement is a requirement that a proof of appropriate insurance coverage be provided, naming the Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority as an additional insured. This is our standard hangar lease. Mr. Tate is a longtime tenant, and he is just renewing for the following year.
Good. Good. Very good. Is there a motion on the resolution?
I'll move it.
Been made. Is there a second? Any discussion? Not Anne Marie, call the roll, please.
Ms. Summerall?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Coffin?
Yes.
Ms. Clerk Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Burns?
Yes,
Ms. Whitney?
Yes.
Motion carries.
thank you. Agenda item E1, approval of the continued support of Federal Harbor Deepening and State Dock Wall Expansion Projects. Mr. Morris?
Okay, this one, the numbers are quite staggering here. When we went into this project, with the help of the chairman back in February of 2020, we had written up a resolution to say that we're done with this project due to the fact that we weren't able to get funding. This is even before COVID. Before we were going to do that, to bring that to the board, we said we'll reach out. And when we did, we found enormous support from Senator Schumer's office, because the Army Corps of Engineers couldn't wait around any longer with the money that they had put aside for our project. They wanted to take it somewhere else. Not being anything bad about that, but it's just that you can't just leave it out there. And we didn't have a future. But the senator's office was aware of this, and they said to I believe to the Corps anyway, let's keep it there and see what we can do. And that's when New York State stepped in, the DOT stepped in and said, we'll fund the OBPA share of the project. So we had everything in place all through the year, and we were working up to a June bid date, June of 2021 bid date. And what we were bidding, it wasn't us, it was the Corps. The Corps handles the harbor deepening and we'll handle the port expansion. That'll be the OBPAs. But we are 35% of the harbor deepening. So what, you know, whatever costs go in, we're on the hook for 35%. So they went out for bids and they only got one bidder, and that bid came in roughly at, they hold things tight. I have no insight into the project. I had to wait 2 months before they negotiated, and then they finally said the number was somewhere in the 26 or $27 million range, and we had only planned on a little, somewhere over 10, about 11 million. So it was 2.5 times what we anticipated. And, you know, I don't know if it'd be any different for us, but, you know, the Corps was running the ship on this one. So they went back to the drawing board and asked the contractor, what can we do to reduce the cost? Well, just in COVID and then different things that are core requirements, it drove the price up to where you have a limited number of contractors. Not everybody can come and do that. They have a limited amount of equipment. When they tie that equipment up for 2 years, they need a return on investment. So there's other projects out there that and that's why we might have only gotten one. There was other projects out there that other contractors to go to. So that was one of the issues. The other was the Corps has a really tight specs with blasting and a lot of requirements, and some are unknown. You know, contractors, they're just so strict that I don't want to say highball, but they put money in there to cover any eventuality. And then we are looking to take the dredge spoils and take them out at a spot out at the airport. So that's another thing that drove it. Well, anyway, it went from roughly 11. Our whole project all in was about 24 million. It went to 42 when you add all that in, with no increase on the port. We haven't bid the port expansion project. So if we did that at the same time, it could be even higher. So if you see in here, the main number to look at is there's an unmet need of 18,310,067 million. And then next to that, you see 5 million federal and then 13.3 state or OBPA. Well, unbeknownst to me, but it's a regulation, the limit that they can spend on this project is 10 million. So it's not like the Corps can say, well, we'll pick up most of that additional funding. Their limit is 10. And so the rest falls on us as the sponsor. So in order to go forward, the Corps needs your approval to keep moving with this project, or else basically we stop if you feel that way. And I wrote it in such a way that at the end there, I said, it's further resolved that with this project it is pivotal to the future. It will not proceed until outside and state and federal funding is in place. So the hope here is that with a lot of infrastructure money and help from DOT or the state or the federal part, and maybe the feds can waive that 10 million for the Corps to where they can spend more money on that. We're looking at a number of things right now. Quite frankly, we have the money in place with the feds and the state and our monies that we can do the harbor deepening. But once that's done, there's nothing. We would basically take the 13, you see in there 13.2 on the state share secured. Well, let's just say the state took that over to the harbor deepening, we get the harbor deepening, but when it comes to doing the port expansion project, there's no money there. So there has been some talk of that, but what that might do is buy you time to find more funding or with the state or the federal help on that. So they're big numbers, and we got to be, you know, the state stepped up and we thought we were home free, but getting this far into it and finding out that we can't do it according to what the Corps' estimate was in budgeting. This is where we're at. So I'll take any questions you've got on it, because it is tough to get your head around all of this.
If we just do the harbor deepening and assuming that that's all that ever gets done, is that of economic value to this area and to the
Yes.
port?
It-
Just on
from
its own
my-
standalone?
It's not as great as it could be, but there's value in being able to take advantage of the existing property. You don't pick up any more storage space, because the port expansion kicks that out to where you really have a lot more storage space for different bulk products or windmill components. But that allows you to move a ship basically 300 feet farther up. You get rid of relocation, you're able to put things in place, and you don't have all of that task of moving all that salt. When you see that big salt pile on there, 1/3 of it was dumped by ship. The other 2/3 was all done by loaders. And that's how we've done it before. So that is part of.
So that does make us more attractive.
Yeah, and you can put it in place and you're not charging, you can lower your overall cost when you take on a per tonnage, taking on a bulk product.
So
It seems to me that reiterating our support for this project is the least we can do in terms of asking for further aid to really complete it. And, endorsing how much it's a part of what we need done here.
There is the spinoff that you're spending. I mean, it didn't all go to the North Country, and it went into materials too, but we spent 19.7 over 2 years during COVID on a bridge improvement project. And then when you look at spending over maybe 2.5 years, 42 million, a lot of which would be a lot of labor, which is always good in the spinoff, is that you improve the infrastructure of the port. And I know a number of businesses and working people have keep asking me when this is gonna happen.
I have, just so I understand, would it be accurate to say that the harbor deepening can happen on its own, but the port expansion, you have to have the harbor deepening?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So you could
I mean, if we went and did that, then we'd be waiting around.
Right.
It'd give you storage area that you could use on land and everything, but to
But
tie
the
it
point
in.
of the two ships.
Right,
or-
but to tie
Yeah.
the purpose of a port, if you leave that out
Right.
to access that that's, you might be waiting a long time.
And even just the deepening would happen before, let's say we did have the funds, you would do the deepening first, then the expansion.
Yeah, and from a means and methods way of going about it, you have to, because if you drive pile along there, then you go and dig out 8 or 10 feet below that, you could actually, so you have to get that first and then work your, and that's how we designed that, but you're right.
Okay.
Dave?
I'm for the expansion. I'm concerned about the money, how much I guess I'm curious, is there any, if we were to lend our support to this, would we be able to extend this at all somehow and potentially get more bidders?
Oh, yeah. I think, well, that's one of the goals of the Corps, is to, after talking to a number of a couple contractors, they've asked them, what can we do to entice you to, and the timing could be, some of it's timing. I don't know, you know, what, if this was to go forward, I think we're looking to bid midsummer of next year. You could have one, or you could have three. Maybe more know about it, and maybe they look at the spec and say, this is something we can handle.
Nicole?
Well, I think Patty and Steve are the experts at how much financially we can contribute. You know, kind of following up on our budget conversation and thinking about how fiscally responsible you both have been as we've moved forward and over the past 2 years, looking at the budget to make sure that we are improving and continuing to promote and drive economic growth. So, you know, Steve, you said a lot of labor, and I'm thinking labor like that's wages, and that's good wages, and that's putting people to work, and that of course contributes to the economy. But if it's anything that's going to break us or put us in a situation where we can't continue to move forward and invest in the area, then it's definitely a concern as well to me. So I think that I would rely on our experts to make the recommendation to us.
Yeah, and just to point out though, that the state stepped up and took care of our unmet need. And we were very happy about that, and they were, and the chairman had something to do with that one because that tied in with the bridge there. And so really what we have in it is our upfront money that we put in to way back in 2016 and 17. We put in a lot of our money. It's probably close to 400 or 500,000. And the idea when it first started was we did get a $10 million grant, and then the remaining money, the state stepped in and it was all funded. So that says that they were committed to what we have here, and because of circumstance and everything, I do think that we need to, it's not going to be funds from the OBPA that are going to make this happen. We all know that. So in a way, we're not going out on a limb, putting us in a precarious position, basically as if the state or the federal people can't help us, or for whatever reason we can't get funding, then it just dies. And when it does, okay, will it ever come back? Will we ever go through all of this to make it happen? I don't know, but it won't leave us in a financial bind, primarily because we don't have the reserves to make that up. So we're not putting in probably a large share of that in different times we would.
Right. And thank you for the clarification on that as well. And I do think that it's important to note that the state's investment shows that they approve and support this project moving forward, and they know it'll be valuable to the North Country.
Right, and it's, we can explain it all and no one can be happy about it, but it's not like we're changing our mind and changing the whole dynamic of the project and adding something that, all of the people involved didn't sign on to, that we're not changing any of that. It's just circumstance and construction costs. And I mean, I'm sure that happened. It's happening everywhere in the state or in the country. But, you think that, well, if you're supporting that as it is, and unfortunately, the pricing isn't working out, why can't you support that? And I know that sounds simple to ask somebody to make up the difference, but that's the only way it's going to happen.
Well, a lot of people have already put a lot of work into this project from when it first started. And there was a time when I think a lot of us thought this was never going to happen. However, you look at what the federal government has done recently with the passage of the infrastructure bill, and where's that money going to? We have an idea of where some of it is going to the airport. Over time, we haven't heard anything on funding for the port or the bridge. So that, in conjunction with the Build Back Better plan of the president's, if people around this country don't think we need to invest in infrastructure, then they're not aware of what's going on. And this is a perfect example. We are the first American port in the Seaway, and the potential here is so much more than I think a lot of people realize, even in the area, and that's unfortunate. But if anywhere, I think our representatives need to understand that if given the opportunity, we expand this port, it can change a lot of what's going on in economic activity in the North Country. And I think we need to push that, let all of our representatives know that regardless of anything we've done, we haven't had any control over any of the cost. The project itself, I think, is worthwhile because of the potential and the future of what it can bring to the area. So I still wholeheartedly support it and encourage all of our elected officials at all levels to get behind our support of this port and come up with the funding that we know we don't have now, but this project should go forward. Plain and simple. The funds should come to the port, this should be expanded, and this project should happen, period. Anyone else? Not, is there a motion?
I'll move it.
Motion's been made, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Anne Marie, call the roll, please.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Coughlin,
Yes.
Ms. Corcoran,
Yes.
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Whitney,
Yes.
Ms. Terrell,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay. Agenda item F1. Oh, I didn't miss anything. You threw that one in there on me, didn't you?
Yeah.
Approval of handling and storage agreement with Dalton Farms LLC. Lawrence?
Yes, we were approached by an agricultural business, Dalton Farms LLC. They have the need for storage of additional storage for dried corn due to the really great fall harvest in the area. And we are tight for space, but given the amount, I believe it's somewhere around 400 tons to 500 tons. And they basically want to store it short term and move it out as quickly as possible. But we can reserve the space for as long as they need it. They're a local firm. They reached out to us. They're at a level that will work. It's a small there, but I think to get the word out or let people know that we have the ability to help you out and do it and take care of their product and be able to load their trucks when they need it. They've been very good with supplying all the information they need. They aren't big business in the sense of the ones that we deal with, but they've stepped up and given everything that the requirements we needed as insurance and things like that. So, so we prepared this storage and handling agreement, and they will probably start on Monday. And they'll have, I think he's just saying one truck going all day, getting it over here. And then he said during the month of January, they'll take it where they need it for that. And the hours that we do, I guess, work into their schedule. Dave, are you familiar with these people? Oh,
Really nice farm, and you might know the father of the operation was a longtime supervisor.
Oh, okay.
Bill. So
Bill.
Yep.
good people, and
And Tommy and Bob.
so certainly great opportunity to help out the local farm. It's kind of what I said, there was a need for this, and it's finally coming to fruition. So
Good.
I think it's good that we can help them out.
Very good.
Yeah, because otherwise they may lose some of this. Would you say that? So
Yeah.
it's kind of the way they
I
made
think
it.
if you, I just think it's good, it's even good business for us, but also goodwill, so good on both on all.
Excellent. Thank you. We would have worked on this. The resolutions before you, is there a motion?
Awesome. Yeah, I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Not Anne Marie, call the roll, please.
Mr. Coffin?
Yes.
Ms. Copeland?
Yes.
Mr. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Whitney?
Yes.
Mr. Malloy?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Any other matters?
No, Chairman.
Any concluding comments from any board members or staff? Any questions from the press? Huh, I guess not. Next meeting dates, tentative January 13th, 2022. I haven't even looked at the calendar yet.
Good to me.
What does that look like? Anyone not be able to do that?
Me. Just don't count on me.
Don't count on you. Anyone else? You get there. Let's try to get there. January 13th, that's a Thursday. Looks good to me. Megan,
I'm good.
you good?
I didn't bring my 22 calendar. So I'm gonna say, yes, hopefully.
Hopefully. Chris, you good?
Yep.
Did Nicole answer? Nicole, you're
Yes,
good?
sir. Good.
All right. That would be our annual meeting too, correct? All right. Anne Marie will have special treats for us. So Lawrence, is there a need for executive session?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there is a need to go into executive session for matters relating to section 105(1) F and H of the Open Meetings Law, the proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of real property, and the employment history of a particular person, corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, and removal of a particular person or corporation. I anticipate that by formal vote be taken.
Did you prepare that form?
I'm on it.
That's,
Okay.
I get Jennifer and
Jennifer, you help too?
I salute. Jennifer keeps me in line.
That was very well.
That was.
I tried.
Okay, motion's been made for executive session for the purposes stated as the executive director. Is there a motion?
Also move.
A second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor of executive session say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? We're going to executive session.
Okay.
Okay, we're coming out of executive session. Mr. Lawrence, anything to report?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we need to take a vote on the Director of Economic Development position.
Okay, I believe we've asked our legal counsel to put forth a resolution. If you would read that into the record, please.
Absolutely. And Anne Marie, I'll type this up and email it to you so you have it. The resolution is as follows. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the Personnel Committee, after careful consideration of a number of candidates, the Executive Director is authorized to offer employment in the role of Director of Economic Development to a particular candidate, subject to receipt of a satisfactory background check and upon the general terms and conditions previously set forth for that role.
Thank you. There's the resolution. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion's been made
I'll second it.
and seconded. Is there any discussion on the resolution? If none, Anne Marie, call the roll, please.
Ms. Cork Pickman,
Yes.
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Ms. Whitten,
Yes.
Ms. Terminelli,
Yes.
Mr. Coughlin.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. Mr. Lawrence, any further business?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Also move.
Motion's been made. Second.
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes. We stand adjourned. Thank you.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays. Good night.
Have a nice holiday.
Nicole, hang on. Nicole,
Okay.
hang on.
Okay.